Okay, good evening, everybody. Good evening, everybody, to those that are on Facebook, to those that are on Zoom. Welcome to another wonderful class. I know it's a busy night. The night of elections is so we'll try to. I don't know if I can outrun the elections, but try to make it exciting as possible and as quickly as I can, so we can go back to the elections. You know, it's really fascinating that the today is day that we elect another president, and it's first of all a wonderful opportunity. We live in a free country, and a country that has democracy, that we vote in our president and our senators and congressmen. So it's truly what a great thing to do, and hopefully everybody voted. But it's interesting, in the world, this class, I believe, is going to bring out something very interesting that we say in the Gemara. Whenever we finish a Gemara, a tractate of Talmud, we say before we say the Kaddish, before the person who finishes the tractate, he says a whole couple of paragraphs about the beauty of ending this tractate, the beauty of learning Torah. And we say, Honor Ratzim Ve'Hein Ratzim. We say the world is running and we're running. And that means we're all trying to accomplish something. And everybody's trying to accomplish, trying to make themselves better, more successful in in the qualities of their life. So, in the world, in the world at large, to become a representative, to become a leader in the world, in the secular world, is a great thing. You first get into the state senate, and then you run for Congress, and then you run for Senate. And if you have, the mazel, you get into, you could run for vice president, for president. I mean, what could be higher than being the president? People are willing to spend millions upon millions of dollars to be the president. What can be better than one becoming the president of the United States of America? There's nothing greater to do in life. And the truth is, that's why after a person becomes a president, he doesn't get another job. Doesn't take another job. I mean, this is the top job of the world. They say the expression, the most powerful man in the world. What could be better than being the president of the United States of America? There's nothing higher in the world. Forget about in America, in the world. So what do you think the Torah says about that? What does the Torah say about that concept? So therefore, this class, I believe, is going to give you a little bit of the answer, even though they didn't set up the class for that. I'm going to direct the class in that manner. And we're going to introduce you to a general question, a debate that has been debated throughout history, and a debate that we struggle with. And I mean, there's many conclusions to this argument, and this philosophical argument, this concept of, as we learn about the patriarchs, we've been introduced to Abraham and Sarah, and this week we are going to be introduced to Yitzchak, Isaac, and next week to Isaac and Rebecca, and then to Jacob and Leah and Rachel and the 12 tribes. These are like unbelievable stories in Jewish history. But as Jews, we mentioned last week, if you remember the class of last week, we spoke about the mitzvah bris milah, which is connected to this week's portion, because it says that the angels came to visit Abraham because he was sick, and he was sick from the brit milah, from the circumcision that he made upon himself by the command of God. So we spoke last week about what's the concept of Abraham doing the circumcision before Matan Torah, and we doing the circumcision after Matan Torah. And we spoke about the two concepts, two blessings that we do by a bris. We do a bris, we say one blessing. The Moel says the blessing on the mitzvah of circumcision, which was given to us at Mount Sinai. And the Abraham's, the blessing that he now becomes part of the covenant of Abraham, which happened a thousand years or so, not that, maybe 1,000 years before, no, 400 years before Matan Torah, or close to that. So we have these two concepts, before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. Something changed. What was the change that happened from Abraham to Matan Torah, to the giving of the Torah, to Moses? What happened? What was the change? And this concept, this philosophical argument, is an argument, as you'll soon see, stems for a long time. Really, the question is, what is the status of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob? What is their status? What is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob's status in concerning to us? Are they Jews? What is the status before Matan Torah? What is the status after Matan Torah? And if there's no difference between the patriarchs before Matan Torah and so why do you need the giving of the Torah? So there's something that is interesting that, and as I said, is an argument that has been stemming for a long time. The argument of what is the difference? What happened at Matan Torah? What changed between before the Torah giving and after the Torah giving? So let's start the class. It's text number 1 on page number 46 in your book. We find a statement from one of the sages. It says as follows. It just brings you an example. I want to show you the concept. It's not in this week's parsha, the story, but the concept. The question is asked that you see an open, blatant difference between before giving the Torah and after giving the Torah. And one of the blatant differences is Jacob. Yaakov Avinu, Jacob. Jacob marries 2 sisters. That's openly against the Torah. The Torah prohibits you to marry 2 sisters. Number 1, so you have that open situation. He doesn't even bring down here. For example, Moses' father married his aunt. Amram married Yocheved. Yocheved was Amram's aunt. And from this union came about Moses. And we know in the Torah it says openly, an aunt is not allowed to marry a nephew. So this sage says, text number 1, if Jacob had a legal status of a Noahide, then surely he would not violate the prohibition against incense found in the 7 laws of Noah. The matter then can be resolved. So therefore, this sage says, you cannot say, some people say the reason why Jacob married a sister because he didn't follow the Torah. So if he didn't follow the Torah, so he didn't have he was allowed to marry a sister. But we know that's one of the 7 Noahide laws. You're not allowed to have incest in your family. So it was against the 7 Noahide laws. If you're going to call him a Bnei Noach, it was against the 7 Noahide laws. The matter then can be resolved simply. Jacob was a Jew, and the justification of his marriage to both Leah and Rachel is that technically they were not sisters. Rachel and Leah were not sisters. What do you mean not sisters? As a rule, a convert is considered a born Jew. Because the question is, how did Jacob marry Rachel and Leah? They were not Jewish. How did he marry? Jacob was born from Isaac and Rebekah, so he was Jewish. But Rachel and Leah were born from Laban and some lady, and they were not Jewish. So they must have converted. If you convert, then the practical implication is that you're a newborn Jew. No longer retains the family status. So you lose your family status. You're a Jew. So now, seemingly, you're a new person. It's like the Gemara says, it's like a child that was born, a newborn child. I know some converts who say that their birthday is when they converted. So even though they're 30 years old, but they're only 1 year old, 10 years old, because that's when they were born. They were newly born. So now Rachel and Leah were not sisters because they were newly born children. And even though biologically they had one mother, but in Jewish law, they're not biologically sisters. Don't do this at home. Clearly, before their marriage to Jacob, both sisters converted, and so they were no longer considered relatives. As such, they were permitted to marry Jacob. But there are those who disagree with that. There are those who argue with that, and as you'll soon see in a moment. Look at the next test. Rabbi Eliyahu Mizrahi in text number 2. He asks another question. How come Moses, we have a story of Moses got married to a beautiful girl in Midian called Zipporah. And then he met up with the burning bush. And God tells him to go travel to Mitzrayim. So he takes his beautiful wife. He had a child before, and he goes with these 2 children down to Mitzrayim. And the Torah says that he didn't circumcise his child. And the snake came, and the snake swallowed him, and Zipporah took a stone, and she circumcised her son and saved him. The question is asked, why did Moses circumcise his son? How come Moses rationalized his failure in performing the godly commandment of circumcision that was given to Abraham? And as we say that he was Jewish, Moshe Rabbeinu was Jewish, and he followed the Torah. So how do you do that? What right did he have to disobey the direct command given to all the descendants of Abraham? So true, the Torah instructed a Jew never to perform a mitzvah when it endangers a life. So maybe that's reading, but at that point in time, the Torah had not been given. So therefore, why didn't he do it? So our forefathers did not indeed have an extensive knowledge of the Torah. Our forefathers did indeed have an extensive knowledge of the Torah and fulfilled all its commandments. But listen what he says. Nevertheless, they would have been able to keep the Torah only as an added measure of their scrupulousness, but not as a means of shrinking the commandments that they were explicitly commanded. So, in essence, this sage feels that they were not Jewish. Even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't have the commandments as a Yid. Didn't have that same obligation. They were like B'nai Noach. But they were such spiritual people that they had a Jewish family. They had a Jewish feeling. They had a Jewish agenda. Being a Jewish nation happened when God took the Jewish people out of Mitzrayim. When God took the Jews out of Mitzrayim. And when God took the Jews out of Mitzrayim, he called them a nation. And he said, in 50 days, I'm going to give you the Torah. And that created the Jewish nation. But beforehand was a philosophy, was a family, was a gathering of people. Nachmanides, in text number 3, totally disagrees with this sage and says, from the moment Abraham entered into a covenant with God, he and all his descendants were henceforth Jews and no longer considered Gentiles. What are we showing you here? What is it they're trying to show you? This is an argument that were they Jews or were they called Bnei Noach? Until Matan Torah, that's when the Jewish people were coined as a Jewish nation. Actually, the first person to coin the Jews as a nation was Pari. Pari called the Jewish people a nation. Am Yisrael. The Jewish nation was coined by Pharaoh. Ultimately, God took out a nation. And he gave them the Torah. So we have this argument. I'm just showing you. We have this argument, this struggle. Look at the next text, 4. Shruv Re'isi, this sage said, Rabbi Yehuda Rosen says in Pshat Drachim, Derachat Aturim, he says, true to behold, this argument stretches all the way back to Talmudic times. Each opinion mentioning above have a greater backing to their claim. The Talmud supports the views of Nachmanides and Yefeitar, while the Medrash supports the French scholars and the Re'im Rabbi Yoel Mizrahi. This is an old argument. This is an old struggle. What is the official rule of what they were? It's brought down that later on, when Joseph and his brothers had an argument, I don't want to go into the argument, but the Gemara, it's brought down that was the argument. Were they considered? Did they have the law, even though they kept the laws of Jews? Do they have the laws of Jews? Or even though they're keeping the laws as Jews, they still are Bnei Noach? You can say like maybe an analogy, or a person who's working to become a convert, and she might be keeping the laws and learning the laws, or he's learning the laws and keeping the laws, but they're still Bnei Noach until they convert to Bnei Noach. So what are they considered? So Nachmanides, and as he brings down the Gemaras, many Gemaras, it shows, and as in text number 5, the Gemara, you see the Gemara says that they were Jews. They were considered Jews. And there were those who held that they weren't considered Jews. They were considered very holy people. So the Gemara says in text number 5, Abraham, our forefather, fulfilled the entire Torah before it was given. As the verse states, because Abraham listened to my voice and he kept my charge, my commandments, and my statutes, and my laws. That means Avraham Avinu kept the entire Torah. And not only that, the Gemara says in text number 6, it says, Rab Chama, son of Rav Chanina, said, from the first days of our forefathers, they were never left without a yeshiva. So, and we know, like the tribe of Levi in Mitzrayim, the tribe of Levi were not slaves. They sat in yeshiva. This is an old argument. Should certain people be able to sit in yeshiva and not be obligated to do things that other people do? So the point over here is that we know that Lepaski Shema is saying. So most commentator holds that they were Jews. They were Jews. They had the laws of Jews. And therefore they kept the entire Torah. So now, if that is what you're going to say, the question is now even stronger. So, what was the accomplishment of Matan Torah? What was the greatness of Matan Torah? If Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the patriarchs, the matriarchs, and the tribes, and all the parshas that we're going to read in the next couple of weeks, all kept the entire Torah, and they were Jews, so why do you need Matan Torah? And the truth is, this is going to revolutionize, in essence, what is the accomplishment? Why we, as we mentioned last week, why we, even though we say the blessing, that we're bringing him into the covenant of Abraham, because Abraham was the first Jew, nevertheless, the Mohel, the one who's circumcised, is going to still say the bracha, that the blessing of the mitzvah that God commanded us at the giving of the Torah at Sinai, that God commanded us that we should do the mitzvah. So we try to explain the difference between the mitzvah that we do it because of Abraham and the mitzvah that we do it because the Rebbe is going to come with another, even a deeper than what we said last week. We're going to go even more deeper into this aspect because actually it revolutionized the world. Matan Torah revolutionized the world. It changed the dynamics of the world. And the truth is that concept of the changing of the dynamics of the world should be something that we live with till today. It shouldn't be something that goes away, of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. No, it's something that we struggle with, and that's why I said in the beginning of the class, the concept of elections and the aspects of honor rights of that we're both running, we're both trying to accomplish something in the world. It changed the dynamics of what we are trying to accomplish in the world. And what should be our focus and accomplishment in the world. So to understand this, the Rebbe brings down a very famous Gemara. The Gemara asks the question. You must have heard this Gemara because I've said this Gemara many times in shuls, and maybe you heard it in classes. The Gemara says a very interesting statement, and that's in text number 7 on page 50. The Gemara says, "Gadol ha-mitzvah v'oisa yoser mi she'eina mitzvah v'oisa." Greater is one who's commanded to do a mitzvah and performs it than one who's not commanded to do a mitzvah and performs it. This is something the Gemara says that's above, that's super rational, so to say. Because why would you, if somebody, most people say, I've done you a favor even before you asked. That would be somebody does something even before he's asked. Why wouldn't that be better than to do something after you're asked? That's what the Gemara says. Greater a person that does something after he's asked than a person that does something before he's asked. So here is how the sixth Lubavitcher Rebbe explains it. The Rebbe Rashab. This is the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe on text number 8. How did going back to the Ovis? How did our ancestors perform the mitzvah? How did they perform the mitzvah? So let's take, for example, he takes the example of tefillin. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to put on tefillin. Tefillin, for example, contains parchment rolls, recounting the miracles, the story of Exodus of Egypt. How then would they have worn tefillin when the Exodus did not occur? So what portions did they have in tefillin? The same when we ask for the mitzvah to eat matzah on Passover. and live in a sukkah on Sukkot, which respectively commemorate our hasty departure from Egypt, and the huts we later dwell in while traveling through the desert. How did they sit in the sukkah? It didn't happen yet. The story of Egypt and the going out of Egypt and the 40 years in the desert did not happen. So how would it be possible for these acts to be performed before the events they commemorate? Therefore, we are compelled, the Rebbe Rashab says, to say that the Torah study and the mitzvah's performance were not focused on the material. Instead, they were aimed to connect to the spiritual and the emotionally to God. They performed each specific mitzvah to bond with God in each unique way. The mitzvah of tefillin, for example, represents the quest to live according to the dictates of the mind. The whole concept of tefillin is moyach shalat alalev. You put your tefillin on your head, you put your hand tefillin on your heart, mind over matter. So, for example, mind over matter, while taming the temptations of the heart. So laying tefillin for our ancestors meant attaining its spiritual significance. Any accompanying physical act was only to express the specific mitzvah endeavor they were working on and experiencing. So they took, when it says Avraham Avinu did every mitzvah, he took every mitzvah a way he understood it in his mind, the purpose of the mitzvah. He was a great Kabbalist. He was a great Talmudic scholar. And he expressed it in that way. Now, if you look, the Zohar says in the next text, the Zohar says under this verse, the famous story of Jacob, how he tricks his father-in-law. When his father-in-law told him, the way I'm going to pay you is you're going to go into the field and take out the spotted sheep and the whole thing, the way he took the maklis, the sticks, and he put it to the eyes of the sheep, and they gave birth to spotted sheep. Right? You have it in front of you in text number 9. This is the verses in Bereshit and Genesis, chapter 30, 37, and 38, and 39. And Jacob took himself moist rods of resembling poplar and hazelnut and chestnut, and he peeled white streaks upon them, bearing the white that was on the rods. And he thrust the rods that he peeled into the gutter of the watering troughs, where the animals would come and drink opposite the other animals, and they would become in heat when they came to drink. And the flock came into heat by the rods, and the animals bore rings and spotted striped youngs. The Zohar says, this is the way Abraham put on tefillin. This is the way Abraham put on tefillin. How did he do that? I don't really know. Those very spiritual concepts. This was the Zohar. Zohar says all these aspects of him was the aspect of that through their mind. I mean, you can see it in a simple way, that through their mind that they had certain kind of children, because through their mind they created certain kinds of children. Mind over matter. It's interesting, but the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, the second chapter of Tanya, he says the same thing almost, that it all depends on the character, the thought of the parent, and the father, mother, the time of conception, what the character of the child is going to be. So if your child has a certain character, you got to think, you got to remember what you had in mind at the time of conception, if you can remember. So the Rebbe says, look in text number 10, the Rebbe explains this. Our forefathers' divine service is not wholly divorced from the physicality. He made sticks. We find clear example the mitzvah was performed in a physical form we're now familiar with. Light Avram Zesser, that's today's chitas. We learned today in the morning chitas that light Avram Zesser recorded baking matzahs for Passover. When the whole story of light and Sdoim happened, it happened on Passover. And it says when he invited the malachim into his house, he gave him matzahs. And Rashi says, why did he give him matzahs? Because he came from the house of Abraham. He learned the Torah with Abraham. And he knew that on Pesach, you had to eat matzahs. So he gave his guests matzahs because it was Pesach. And you have to eat matzahs on Pesach. So when Isaac requested Esav Purim food, the Torah describes his meal as being 2 kid goats. Talmud points out that one person certainly could not eat 2 goats in one sitting. So why did he prepare 2 kid goats? That since it was Passover, he designated one goat for the Paschal offering and the other for the general festival sacrifice. So that's why he had 2 kid goats in that story. So they knew not only that it was Passover and what Passover meant, they also knew that there's going to be certain things that are going to be done on Passover. They're going to eat matzah, physical matzahs. So what happened? So the Rebbe says the physical act, however, was beside the point for them. Indeed, because they were solely dedicated to God, our forefathers' entire being were thoroughly permeated by the powerful connection they were experiencing. Even their body limbs expressed what was going on inside. Thus, the patriarchs are described as God's chariot. The Zohar, this is a famous Zohar, it's brought down in Tanya also, that when the Zohar wants to express what were the patriarchs, they are called the Merkava, God's chariot. Why? Because these great people, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their wives, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah, they were so totally focused and so totally given over to their mission, which they understood as their mission. They were totally given over with body and soul, like a chariot that is totally given over to its rider. That's why by them you see the expression Hineni, here I am. God tells Abraham, take your son and bring him as a sacrifice. He goes. That's this week's parsha. He goes. He doesn't argue. He's not like Moshe Rabbeinu who argues with God. He reached up to the level where he not only intellectually understood godliness, his body moved that way. His body moved that way. No, the Rebbe, later on in this week's portion, it says that God asked Abraham to take his son, to bring him a sacrifice. He takes his son to the mountain. He ties his son up. He puts it on top of the wood. And then it says an interesting expression. Vayishlach es yodai. He sent his hand to take the knife. Why does it say Vayishlach? He sent his hand. What do you mean sent your hand? Your hand usually goes where you want to go. You don't send your hand. Your hand is when I want to. Alter Rebbe gives an example to that in Tanya. That when your hand is bottled to your will. So when you want to move your hand, you don't send your hand goes. It's not like a command and a response. Your hand goes because your hand is nullified to the will of a person. So if Abraham was so nullified to God, why did he have to send his hand? And the answer is because Abraham, in essence, knew that subconsciously he knew that God doesn't want him to kill his son. It was not something that God, even though God told him that, it was a challenge. But God didn't want to kill his son. Therefore, it says, Vayishlach. He was going against his own nature. He was going against his own godly nature. Because in essence, God didn't want him to kill his son. As it happened 2 seconds later, God says, I never wanted you to kill your son. I wanted to see how far you would go. It was a challenge. But chas v'shalom, what I want, that chas v'shalom you should take and kill your son. So that's why he says, Vayishtach, he sent his hand. It follows that their spiritual endeavors found expression in the physical matter as well. But such material expression was not the main point. That was not their main thing. Their main point was a spiritual journey. They had a spiritual journey. And the truth is, that's why it says in our prayer, it says, Elokei Avram, Elokei Yitzchak, Elokei Yaakov. We divided into, so to say, 3 gods, chas v'shalom. But it was their 3 personal journeys. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were 3 different people. And we know that Chassidus says that they had 3 different characters. They were simply different in their characteristics. Abraham was chesed, Yitzchak was gevura, was totally opposite of his father in his character and his nature. They were different in nature. They were not, even though they were father and son, they were polar opposites. And Yaakov was also a polar opposite of his father. The truth is, Yaakov was a polar opposite of his father and his grandfather. Yaakov was midas hateferet. He had a different character. And the truth is, that's what you see. If you go through the parshas, you'll see that they simply lived different lives. They acted different. They did different things. One didn't do what the other did. Totally not. They didn't live lives that you would think a father would live and a son would live. They went into different businesses. They did different things. Their life journey was totally different, one from the other. These 3 men, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and their wives, had 3 different journeys because they were 3 different people. And they took their own journey and went to the ultimate that they could go. They went to the ultimate of their capacity. They reached up to the highest level they could do in their natural, in their capacity of life. They couldn't go, you couldn't get any higher than Abraham and Chesed. The Gemara says that even Chesed itself in heaven said, Abraham has taken away my job. Abraham reached up to the highest level of Chesed. Yitzchak reached up to the highest levels of Gevurah. And Yaakov reached up to the highest level of Tiferes. He redeemed both his father and his grandfather. He reached up to the highest level of his capacity. You couldn't get higher. The beauty of each one of these, if you listen to the Parshas, especially now we're living with Avram and now Yitzchak, we come to the end of the Parsha of Yitzchak. You take the polar opposites of Avram and Yitzchak, and you understand that here were two men who understood their purpose in life and what their journey in life, and there were 2 different journeys. The way they understood life was, and they both reached up to the highest level of journey that they could reach in their lives. In your, it's a very interesting expression that we say in our davening, not davening, and a grace after meal, when we eat bread, we say express Baka Miko Kol. Avra Hashem Be'ech Hazram Baka, with everything. Miko, from everything. Kol, everything. Where are these 3 expressions mentioned? By these 3 patriarchs. Avram, it says Bakal. Yitzhak, it says Mikael. And Yaakov, it says Kol. meaning they had everything. Everything a human being can accomplish, they accomplished. Not only did they accomplish in a physical way, they accomplished the way they understood to accomplish it even in a spiritual way. You couldn't get three better individuals in the world. Not only then, that time, until today. Until today. We call them Avram Avinu, Yitzchak Avinu, Yaakov Avinu, Sarah Imenu, because that is our journey too, in a way. We should try to accomplish, as I mentioned in the first class, I believe the Gemara says, Talmud says, when will I be able to reach up to the ways of my fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? So we should do the same thing. Use our seichel, mind over matter. And if it's chesed, I'm going to go to the ultimate level of chesed. And I'm going to reach to my ultimate goal of chesed. So while there's always some material manifestation of each spiritual journey, the physical component and the mitzvah remain a distant second to the lofty intent behind it. Using the sticks as an example. So it's not important, the sticks. That's why Yaakov Avinu put on tefillin with sticks. Because the physical was irrelevant to them. They were spiritual beings. It was just an expression that they used the physical for it. Therefore, indeed, was a material expression of the spiritual mitzvah of tefillin, the sticks, the maklois. Yet to Jacob, the physical dimension and the characteristics of those sticks were of no importance. It was what the stick represent. The sticks had no importance. The matzah had no importance that they ate on Pesach. It was thus an expression. Yitzchak Avinu knew that on Pesach you had to give two sacrifices, two goats. But he didn't actually bring them as a korban. So therefore, if you go a step further, if you go a step further, look at the text number 11. Rabbi Yosef Cairo Shulchan Aruch writes, articles of holiness, such as a container of a Torah scroll, or a mezuzah case, a tefillin straps, D, a box which they put the Torah scrolls or a single book of the Torah, E, a chair upon which they put a Torah scroll, and F, a curtain which hangs in front of the Holy Ark, are considered sacred and require burial when no longer able to be used. So even though we're not using them anymore, you have to bury them. Why? Because they were used out for a concept of holiness. I put the curtain in front of the ark. So now I have to basically bury it. Why is that being used? But of course it was used for holiness. So in essence, something that was used for holiness. So even though I'm not using it now for holiness, there's no use right now. Nevertheless, it's the intent. It's the intent. The intent was used for holiness. It in essence retains some aspect of holiness. Now we understand the Avos. We might understand the patriarchs and their journey. Hopefully you understand. If you don't understand, please ask. But now we can understand the patriarchs and their journey and the way they journeyed in Yiddishkeit. That's why it says by the patriarchs that whenever they went out, they reached. Vayetze vayaveh. Whenever they went out to do something on a journey, they came to it. Why? Because they were focused on the intent, on their purpose, on the accomplishing of the agenda. They were going to do it by hook or by crook.
Rabbi, I have the question about. I'm still confused about the tefillin. So it wasn't what we would consider tefillin. So there was no leather straps, no box. It was stick.
Correct. It was sticks.
But he had it in his
That was the
head.
leather box. The
Okay,
stick.
but he had the thought in his head of what it would become.
Correct. He had the thought in his head that what right now I put on tefillin, that he would accomplish it through these sticks, as Zoya says. He would accomplish it through these sticks, through taking
Okay.
these sticks and bringing certain colors upon it. That would accomplish what I'm accomplishing through tefillin.
Okay.
Again, you got to be a very extreme Kabbalistic mind to be able to come to that conclusion. Understand? Yaakov Avinu had extremely a Kabbalistic, maybe understood the makeup of the that stick and the meaning of that stick, etc., etc. I don't know. It's like it says that Adam gave the name of every animal. He didn't call a cow. He called him a shor. A shor, he called him a Hebrew name. He called him a shor because the DNA of a shor, of a cow is shin vav resh. Shin vav resh. These three letters is the DNA, the Kabbalistic DNA of this cow. So why is a shor called a shor? Not because why is a cow called a cow? Because I don't know. There's no meaning to the word cow. But according to Torah, the shor, there's a meaning. If you know Kabbalah and you know the meanings of the Hebrew letters, you would know the meanings of when you take a shin and a vav and a resh and you put it together. And what would be the makeup of a shin and vav and a resh? Because that's why it's called Lashon Kodesh. These letters are holy letters. It's a holy language, a living language. So putting letters together create buildings, create unbelievable things. That's why when you say Tillim, for example, you sometimes you read Tillim. It's very hard to understand, even though you translate it in English. But really, it's hard to understand what was David HaMelech. What was he thinking when he put these words together? When he put these letters together, David HaMelech was thinking godly, spiritual concepts. That's why I've said many times at the end of Tillim, there's a prayer we say. We say, let us say Tillim. We're saying Tillim, and we ask God that God should connect the kavanas, the intent of David HaMelech when he wrote these words and put these words together. What was his spiritual godly intentions? And he should let God take David HaMelech's intentions and put it together with me saying the Tillim. Because sometimes when I say Tillim, I don't see the connections. I don't see what is the meaning of the Tillim. And even if you translate it in English, I still don't get it truly why all these words are needed and why are all these expressions, I really don't know. And so too is the whole davening, etc. And that's why you don't have to say kavana. You don't have kavana. It says you should daven in the way the Chachamim put together the davening. They had the right kavanas. They had the right intentions of why they said this word and not a different word, and why they put this prayer and why didn't they put another prayer. So if you think about it, if so, that's why the question, if God wanted that everybody should reach up to his potential, really, you'd say, leave it up to everybody to live up to their potential. Why wouldn't that be a great idea? Why didn't Yiddishkeit stay in that kind of a form? It stayed for hundreds of years that way, from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the patriarch, and the Shvatim, the tribes. So why let us live a life that we will all going to reach up to our own potentials and leave it that way? Some people will go higher, some people will be lower. That's life. Why wouldn't it be that is the model? Why didn't God leave it as the model? Isn't that unbelievable? Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that they were not given a Torah and they did the whole Torah. They lived up to their potential. Isn't that unbelievable? That a human beings can live up to their own potential and everybody would live up to his and her potential? Isn't that unbelievable? That should be praised in the world. Comes the Gemara, and the Gemara says no. The Gemara just wipes that whole thing away. The Gemara says, no, that's not living up to your potential. Gadol ha-mitzvah v'omed. Greater is a person that's commanded than a person that's not commanded. The Gemara in one statement knocks off this whole philosophy. He says basically Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are wonderful, but you know what? That's not the way God really wanted it. Because God really wanted that a person should go higher. And people should be higher than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the only way it can do that is through Gadol ha-mitzvah v'isa. Great is a person that's commanded, that's not commanded. Now that's amazing. Because, and let's first understand it first, and then I'll tell you why it's amazing. At least in my mind, it's truly amazing. Because in essence, it's going to come out that it's not about my potential. God didn't send me down to the world for my potential. And that's why nobody lives up to their potential. And on the other hand, everybody lives up to God's potential. And therefore, everybody accomplishes to lives up to God's potential. As you'll see. So if I follow the paragraph of the Gemara, that greater is a person that follows a command than does it on his own, means that it's greater to follow a mitzvah that was given by God than me to living up to my potential of a command. So in essence, the Gemara says, I'm going to emphasize this again, the Gemara says that I, Zalman Boket, is greater than Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because that was the revolutionary concept of Matan Torah. That was the revolutionary change of the giving of the Torah that the patriarchs did not have. Because that was their potential, and I'm doing not my potential. I'm doing God's potential. So let's look at it the way that Ebb explains it. First of all, he brings down a Maral Miprag on text number 12. The key difference in the motivation for the performance, when you are commanded to perform a specific act and you comply, the behavior is then attributed to its cause, the command. Conversely, when you perform the same act, but purely on your own volition, then the reason for your behavior can only be attributed to yourself, the one who performs the act. So Rabbi Yehuda gives you the key to why greater a person that's commanded than a person that goes on his own. He explains to the Gemara. So the Rebbe says in text number 13, he says, many sources point out to the fact that Abraham fulfilled the entire Torah before it was given. Yet though he certainly attained a high degree of holiness, he only reached as high as limited creature can reach. He reached up to his potential. He became the president of his character. Meaning to say, without a command from God, which is essential divine empowerment, man cannot surpass his source. In so much as Abraham was the motivating power behind whatever he achieved, he was on his own. He was naturally unable to transcend himself. He was never commanded to do anything. The only thing he was commanded was to do bris milah, to circumcise. Isaac was not commanded anything to do. Besides, he was not even commanded to circumcise himself. Abraham circumcised him. He did the entire Torah. And so is Jacob. So look at text number 14. The Rebbe says that our forefathers performed the mitzvahs autonomously. Unlike their descendants, they were not yet provided with divine empowerment that resulted in Matan Torah. Particularly, this meant that their physical acts were unable to become infused with a mitzvah of holiness. They were incapable of transforming the mundane and making it sacred. This is illustrated by the story of Jacob and the sticks. Though he used them to aid him in sublime spiritual experience, when he finished the sticks, he threw it away. Contrast with a mitzvah performed after Matan Torah. Because the God's command, empowerment, we now can render something mundane sacred. That because we're not doing it, we don't. Well, how could I'm deciding this is sacred. God said it's sacred. It's not doing me. I cannot make anything sacred. I cannot make anything holy. The only one who can make this holy is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because God can make it holy. I don't have no power to make anything holy. And if I did have power, the only power is that what the Abishah gave me the power to make it holy. That's a revolutionary idea I'm trying to explain to you. That is something revolutionary till today. That is something we struggle with until today. That we should, what's important in life? What is anu ratzim v'hein ratzim? To be the best that we can be, or to be the best that God can be? To be the best that we can be, you might never reach anywhere. And then you might reach someplace and say, wow, this was it. This is what I accomplished. So let's look at text number 15. The Rebbe continues, and we're almost coming to the end. On page number 60, when Abraham was commanded by God to circumcise himself, he then became able to transcend his human self and connect with his creator. That's why that was the bris. That was the only mitzvah that they had, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and all the way down the line, till Moshe Rabbeinu, till before going out of Mitzrayim, where Abraham gave them another mitzvah. So until then, they had one mitzvah, and that mitzvah was circumcision. That's why we say in the Haggadah, when God came to Egypt, he saw they didn't do circumcision. The Jews in Egypt didn't do circumcision. He couldn't believe it. The Jews in Egypt didn't even do circumcision, something that he gave to the patriarchs, he gave to Abraham. They didn't do circumcision. And they circumcised themselves before going out of Mitzrayim. All the Jews circumcised themselves. B'damayich, in your bloods, the blood of Milah and the blood of the carbon, the two mitzvahs that they did circumcision, and they did carbon. They did the sacrificial offering, which God asked them to bring, the carbon pesach. By performing the mitzvah, he became one with God, who had just commanded him to perform this act. Now he did something not because he had any spiritual intentions, not because he had any spiritual greatness. He did it because God asked him to do it, so he did it. Abraham became like Zalman Bucket with the mitzvah of Milah. Abraham transformed himself, became a different reality. At that mitzvah, that was something that he didn't become for 100 years. He did it when he was 99 years old. He became a whole different reality. That's why, it's one of the reasons why Abraham had to wait till he was 100 to have Isaac, because he had to wait to do this mitzvah. Because to imbue his son, Isaac, with this power, to not only live in a way of their potential, he had to wait till he had the mitzvah of bris milah. He wanted to make sure, not he's going to wait like Yishmael, who's going to be 13 years old, who did the mitzvah who did the mitzvah, and his child will do it like some do it in the older age because their own intellect, their own advice. But he waited until God commanded him. And we see the next one we see in text number 16, we see how Abraham understood the greatness of this mitzvah. Because in next week's Parsha, when Abraham tells Eliezer to go search for a wife, he tells Eliezer, put your hand, Abraham said to his servant, the elder of his house, who ruled over all the house, please place your hand under my thigh. And the Rashi says, because there was the closest to his bris milah, the only mitzvah that he had. It was the only mitzvah that he had, even though he was already 100. It was over 100. Actually, he was over 137 years old. 137 years old. And still he understood that it's the only mitzvah that he has. It's the only command that he has. Great is a person that's commanded, that he's not commanded. It means Abraham, even though he understood Abraham understood who he was, and he understood the highest levels that he reached. But Abraham said, I'm not a mitzvah v'ema. I never was commanded to do anything. And here, God asked me for one thing in my whole life. When he was there then 137 and he lived another 40 years, he was never asked anything but that. One thing. We're going to end off the last text, the text of the Rebbe, which ends off this class. The Rebbe writes, that's the beauty, the lesson that we learn. You should never be satisfied with your accomplishments. No matter how great your accomplished is, nobody should be happy with his accomplishments. The Rebbe writes, when it says, Ezu Osha Sameach Bechalkei, who is a wealthy man who's happy with his lot? That only is Begashmius. That's a wealthy man. That works in the physical side, but it's a negative in the spiritual side. A person should never feel satisfied with his spiritual accomplishments. That he's spiritually accomplished. That's a negative thing. Learn from Abraham. Even after God appeared to him, and in what the Zohar calls a vista, he did not take that to mean that he has just arrived. Vista is a vision, a vision. As long as you aren't entirely one with God, there's still room to add and grow spiritually. On the other hand, if you do the most you possibly can, you are guaranteed to be gifted with unbounded growth. You have to do the physically the most you can do. Spiritually, never be satisfied. Ezu Asha Sameach Bechalkei, who is wealthy, a person who's happy with his lot. He tried everything he can do Begashmis. That you should do all you can do. Physically, spiritually, never be satisfied. You always can go greater and greater. There's no limit. It's unlimited. Because you're a mitzvah v'yomid. Because you're commanded by God. It's not about me, it's about God. So not only will God appear to you through a vista is a vista, but you will be able to see divinity, divine clearly, as indicated in the name of the Pasha, Vayera, and God appeared just as it was with Abraham. Abraham usually saw a vision, I think, through a dream. But now, Vayera, when he did the mitzvah of Milah, God comes and speaks to him. God comes then, if he's 100, he's 99 years old. God comes not in a dream, God comes and visits. He's sitting at the door. He tells God to wait. God comes to visit him. If the person says, Abraham, he's 100 years old. He's 99 years old. He's reached up to his highest potential. God said, now you're going to be connected to me. You're going higher in potential. Your potential is unlimited because you're doing something that I have asked. That is the difference, my friends, between ultimately Matan Torah and what the patriarchs did. And the truth is, that could be also, in continuation of the last week's class, is again why we put the two blessings by the Bris Milah. The blessing that it's a mitzvah that was given on Matan Torah, and it's a mitzvah that was given to Avraham Avinu, the only mitzvah that was given to Avraham Avinu. To emphasize that one mitzvah, my friend, one mitzvah that you do for God connects you to not only to do what you're supposed to do, but to accomplish even more than your capability, more than your own possibility. So don't try to reach your possibility or my possibilities. I should try to reach God's possibilities, God's command. And that's the beauty. The Frierdiker Rebbe would say, before a person goes to sleep at night, he should ask himself one question. What did I do today for God? It was whatever long day, it was a 12, 13, 14-hour day. I did a lot of good things. But did I do one thing for God? Or everything I did was my potential. It was because of me, because I wanted to do it. It's because I enjoyed to do it. It's because even the mitzvahs, I enjoyed to do it. I wanted to do it. Do one mitzvah. Avraham Avinu did one mitzvah, and God revealed himself to him. God is asking for us to do one mitzvah. Frierdiker Rebbe said, if you cannot think before you go to sleep of the one mitzvah that you did, not because you wanted to do it or you enjoyed it, but because Gadol HaMitzvah V'Isa, greater is a person who's commanded, now you can go to sleep. But if not, get out of bed and do one mitzvah like Avraham Avinu did for the sake of heaven, because God asked you to do this mitzvah. This is a beautiful sikh of the Rebbe. I hope you enjoyed it. If anybody has a question, you're welcome to ask me any question you want to ask. If not, I wish you